Currently, many problems, ranging from corruption to rising sea levels, have created a world that has multiple pressing crises. More specifically, the problem stems and relates to one key problem that must first be addressed: lagging public infrastructure. There is a sharp contrast that a single street can have, and the New York subways remind me of America's lagging infrastructure, which has not only stood unchanged for decades, but is apparent in the rest of the world as well, which is only worsened by corruption. By addressing these key problems, the poly-crisis world can be fixed one step at a time. Currently, only a third of young people are optimistic about the future of our society, indicating a dire need for unprecedented interdisciplinary change and action. The Council on Foreign Relations estimated that there is an infrastructure investment gap of nearly $2.6 trillion this decade that, if unaddressed, could cost the United States $10 trillion in lost gross domestic product, GDP, by 2039. Next, public investment in U.S. infrastructure as a share of GDP has fallen by more than 40% since the 1960s. Furthermore, by 2030, irreversible damage will be done to the environment if we do not act fast. This situation needs to be turned around. With the United States facing a record-high debt ceiling and unprecedented problems, public infrastructure, misinformation, and food insecurity still permeate throughout society, which causes a net negative for everyone. For example, American subways are still far behind everyone else, and city infrastructure is decrepit. We are ranked 13th in the world in infrastructure. We rank higher in corruption compared to 26 other developed countries. Realizing this as a growing issue, the founder wishes to jumpstart action to ensure his project design matches current world expectations and reality. He was invited to UN ECOSOC Youth Forum Week in New York, where he learned about Ban Ki-moon's new projects and initiatives like the Your Future in Green Jobs program, built a team through meeting like-minded youth involved in the 17 UN SDGs, connected with youth leaders nationally as well as from the global south, to find out ways to expand the outreach of each other's SDG projects. To pave the way for a stronger foundation in public development, intergenerational and collective action is required, ready to make an impact. The founder and his team launched Ascend Agency with the belief that a better tomorrow starts with sound public development today, through its 7 A's of advancement of framework, which consists of the following elements: audience, understanding what demographics should be targeted and why both the company and the intended demographics benefit from the business; advantages, investigating what enables the company to stand out and beat the competition now and in the future; agents, researching the workers, representatives, and skill sets that need to be sought out for the company to operate and flourish; analytics, analyzing what is the reason certain business decisions should be made, and whether is there a pragmatic reason behind the choice; accountability, holding themselves to a moral standard that avoids creating or worsening issues that ultimately hurt people, profit, and the planet; ambition, realizing what it is that ultimately drives the company forward. That is, what is the business's overarching goal; assets, ascertaining what the business needs in items, time, etc., in order to continue to operate and move forward. Through video cast series and working directly with companies, the framework can be used to analyze the current problems in the status quo and make recommendations. Outcomes: Ascend Agency aims to work with different companies and on social media platforms to communicate our framework to the public. The first pilot will take place at UN World Oceans Day, where the founder will apply the 7 A's of Advancement framework to recommend sounder infrastructural development in coastal cities. In fact, according to the Center for American Progress, ocean-based infrastructure has the potential to provide up to 1/5 of the reductions in greenhouse gas (GHG) emissions needed globally to limit the world's temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius, which scientists say is necessary in order to lower the risks associated with climate change. Looking ahead, the organization seeks to engage 500 youth from 25 plus countries and localize 10 plus solutions over the next 3 years. Join us to co-design toward a better and brighter future in public development.
Introducing the 5th A of the 7 A's of advancement, with the goal of progressing both SDG 11 Sustainable Cities and Communities, as well as SDG 14 Life Below Water. So, what's the 5th A of the 7 A's of advancement? It's accountability, holding themselves to a moral standard that avoids creating or worsening issues that ultimately hurt people, profit, and the planet. But what does the best usage of the 5th A look like in the real world? The best example of a focus on accountability when it comes to sustainable infrastructure is Interface Inc., a modular carpet company founded in 1973 dedicated to sustainability. Interface Inc. has an entire page on its website dedicated to sustainability, exhibiting accountability and the usage of data science once again. First of all, the prime example of the usage of accountability is Interface's actions in 2016, where they announced Climate Takeback, a new mission dedicated to stopping and reversing the effects of global warming. This mission can be analyzed through 3 different lenses: people, profit, and planet. For people, Interface uses the re-entry system, quote, the only third-party certified recycling system among North American flooring manufacturers. As part of this initiative, Interface also developed products that received the backing of Sequest and SoundChoice, as well as creating Coolblue, a general environmental initiative focused on reducing carbon usage and water conservation. So what are the actual tangible impacts of these initiatives? The results speak for themselves. There's been a 96% reduction in carbon emissions since 1996. 79% of the energy used at manufacturing sites is renewable energy. There's been an 81% decline in landfill waste since 1996, and 51% of Interface's materials are recycle or bio-based. Prior to its Climate Takeback initiative, Interface was not taking accountability. But now that they have held itself to an environmental moral standard, it's allowed it to turn its accountability into a selling point. That is also important because it ties back into the first A of the 7 A's of advancement, which is audience as well, as this focuses on the audience and what they want to increase, and what they want is an increase in their accountability, because the consumers like when a company holds themselves to their word. For profits and planet, Interface has taken a similar stance when covering people. In 1994, Interface announced its Mission Zero, another environmental mission focused on being carbon negative rather than just carbon neutral. Their first goal was to be a zero impact firm by 2020. They established ambitious sustainability goals in response to founder Ray Anderson's well-known, quote, spirit in the chest moment, which fundamentally altered his outlook on sustainability and business. Interface concentrated on its plants, goods, and supply chains, which allowed it to dramatically reduce its environmental impact. Interface said in November 2019 that Mission Zero has been completed ahead of schedule, surpassing its initial 2020 goal. Since then, the company has focused entirely on Climate Takeback, which I mentioned earlier. All of their efforts culminate in at least 12% closed-loop materials from carpet tile. As a result, this effective reuse of materials shows accountability and saves a lot of money from producing new tiles. This once again ties back to actually the second A of the 7 A's advancement, advantages, as this unique carbon negative idea gives it an advantage compared to other tile companies because consumers are more inclined to choose a more sustainable option if it doesn't come at an extra cost to them. Once again, this increases accountability along with profits. Moving on to data science, you might have noticed that I've listed a lot of specific numbers for the impact of Interface's initiatives. That's because they use massive quantities of data in their business to keep a finger on the pulse of their sustainability. processing all of this data not only helps them quantify their impact, but also identifies areas that are falling behind their set goals and lets them make better decisions. Interface Inc. is a great illustration of how a firm might include accountability in its main business plan. By putting sustainability first, they have achieved outstanding financial achievements in addition to having a good effect on their stakeholders, workers, and environment. Their experience shows that sustainability not only benefits the environment, but business as well.